Okay, so welcome everybody. This is a part of a webcast ahead of Consortia 21 event. It will be 19th and 20th October. I'm talking today with Jens Noffke, who is working capital lead within procurement in Russia. And we'll talk a little bit about a corporate view of various type of platforms and various type of tools available in supply chain space. So Jens, let's start with a little bit of our fundamentals. So everybody will be talking about solutions. There are many, many very interesting solutions, very interesting technologies. But I want to talk a little bit about different. I want to talk what is the problems. So as a corporate, what problems you are trying to solve when these solutions can potentially play a role?
Yeah. Thanks, Igor. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the question. Look, cash is important for probably any business out there, right? And Roche is not different. The pharmaceutical industry, by nature, is a very cash-demanding business to be in. To bring a molecule to a finished product, right, that can take 10, 15 years. We are one of the big spenders in R&D. I believe last year we spent over 12 billion Swiss franc in R&D, and we actually plan to spend even more on R&D going forward, simply because that's the core of our business, right? Innovative medicines. And in terms of trade and financing solutions, so we are looking for tools, or we're working with tools that support our cash and working capital objectives. But at the same time, we want to offer true low-cost financing alternatives to our suppliers, to our supply chain. So our strategy is not to offer a program, that ultimately costs 12, 20% APR. So we're not trying to maximize return on investment, if you want. Our strategy really is to come up with tools that provide access to liquidity at very favorable conditions. That's really the idea here. And we are working with funding partners to provide that liquidity, and partially we leverage our credit rating to make that low-cost funding available.
And am I correct in my understanding that you are not particularly inclined to use your own cash for it, and you need to find the ways how you can mobilize external capital, but providing a lower risk environment for people who are deploying this capital?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the key, and the key reason for working with external funding partners. Look, when you think of cash and working capital, right, having more cash and having that cash longer within your own operations is better than not having that cash, right? So it's but obviously that creates a conflict between large buyers and large suppliers, or even small suppliers, right? That demand for extending payment terms or delaying payment creates a cash crunch on the other side of the supply chain. So these trade financing solutions, they can truly be a win-win. Not in every scenario, right? But if you do it right, and if you partner with the right partners, this can really help both sides of the equation to optimize cash and liquidity. And absolutely. Leveraging our own liquidity, that's not what we would like to do, right? And honestly, if we were to put our own corporate cash on the table, chances are that would cost probably even more than through our funding partners. So, yeah.
Sure. And let's look a little bit, like we are talking now about the technology solutions. We are talking now about platforms and consortia. For sure, supply chain financing exists for a long time. It's offered by a number of banks. There are relatively simple, relatively straightforward solutions, for example, for finance and approved invoices. For sure, you're looking at things that are more advanced. You're looking at the pure financing. You're looking at the various things allowing you to further reach. Is there a particular market need in your view for it? You see a lot of demand for it. It's something that your suppliers believe is very important for them.
Yeah. Very good question. And like you said, so our financing or invoice financing program, right, or supply chain financing has been around for probably 10 years. And it's a very well-established program. And I'm also fully aware that Roche is not the only company out there offering these kind of programs or similar programs. But like I said, what has been critical for us is the cost to the supplier, but also operational efficiency, right? Both for us and for the supplier. It needs to have a high degree of automation. So these two components. And now we're very excited to expand our payment option offering to the purchase order side. Because obviously when you think of a supply chain process, right, traditionally you would start engaging with a supplier by placing a purchase order. Then there is this time period where delivery of goods or services happens. Then you see the supplier submits an invoice, then the payment term period starts. So traditionally payment happens at a very, very late point in time. But very clearly the need for liquidity, the need for cash actually happens at the very beginning of the supply chain process, right? When Roche places a purchase order, I don't know, to manufacture chemical ingredients or whatever it is, build a machine for us, usually that means, initially at least, a cash outflow on the supplier side, right? Now they have to go to the market and buy ingredients, buy chemicals, buy raw material. So it's actually a cash outflow at first, right? And with these two tools, so supply chain financing for the expediting invoice payments, that's something we've been offering for 10 years roundabout. And now we want to also be able to offer access to liquidity when we place that purchase order. And that's where we partnered with Trade Information Network, TIN, and we've had a very successful pilot with Deutsche Bank and one of our suppliers in Germany.
That's so great. And do you actually see that suppliers now have more of a liquidity squeeze due to COVID and logistics issues and things like it? Do you think, like, is there an external effective force that is making it more urgent and more important to find the solutions for it and to work with the various platforms like TIN, to facilitate this process?
Yeah. I don't know if COVID plays too much a role in this particular instance. I mean, when there is a need for cash, there's a need for cash, right? Whether there's a global pandemic or no global pandemic, if you need money, you need money. When we talk to suppliers, every supplier is different, right? Some suppliers will tell us that they have access to cash or they are cash rich, but that's rare. Right, that happens not very often. Yeah, there is definitely a demand for providing access or at least offering alternatives, right? Because most suppliers can go to the house bank and ask for a loan if they have to. Most of the suppliers would have, I don't know, a credit facility or an overdraft, right? The question is, can we do better? Can we offer a better financing alternative? And again, it comes back to pricing, right? We don't want to offer something that doesn't make financial sense. The programs that we put on the table, they need to be financially advantageous to the supplier. Otherwise, why have that conversation, right? If they can access that cash cheaper through a traditional bank loan without us getting involved, there's no point having these conversations. So it needs to be a truly low-cost alternative, and that is independent of pandemic or even interest rates, right? If you need cash, you need cash.
And if you look again now at the platforms or various type of consortia, what will be your criteria? So, for example, TIN is coming to you or another provider is coming to you, and for sure you have a long queue of people knocking on your door offering various type of solutions there. How do you evaluate it? What will be the things that are most important for you when you're making your decisions?
Yeah. At the risk of repeating myself, cost of the program, right? How much does it actually cost a supplier to receive early payment? Is it 0 point something percent, or is it 7%, or is it 12%, right? That is an important driver. But at the same time, operational efficiency. How well can we integrate a solution into our ERP and systems and buying process, right? Is it plug and play? I mean, everybody tells you it's plug and play, but is it really, you know? But we also keep an eye on what does it mean for the supplier, you know, how easily can they reconcile their accounts receivable? Are there tools available to automate? How do we make sure they know what Roche has paid? So it's I would say cost and operational efficiency, very important.
And if we go, because obviously you have a very commodities area that is approved payables finance, no reverse factoring. It's like very simple, very clear. You can definitely look at a cost and you can look at operational efficiency. If you look at things like pure financing, it's much less standard. Not everybody doing the same thing. So if you are saying one is doing it a little bit cheaper, another doing it more expensively, the question is doing what? Because obviously different people do different things and have different ability in terms of the depth, in terms of advance rate, in terms of different things. How do you balance it? So how do you look when you are looking for solutions that are more sophisticated?
Yeah. That's a very broad question, right? I mean, we do keep an eye on the market frequently to see what's happening. I mean, you know, we know a bunch of the fintechs, we know a bunch of the banking providers. It's obviously the hurdle for a large corporation like Roche to implement something new is pretty high, right? It's never change a winning team or a winning process. I mean, our supplier financing program, like I said, has been running for a number of years, like a very well-oiled machine, right? It's super easily integrated into our payment process, reconciliation fully automated, no manual intervention whatsoever. So to consider something new, right, you have to take all of that into account. What does it mean in terms of pricing? What does it mean in terms of potentially financial risk? Integration into your day-to-day operations, into your payment process. All of that plays an important role. But like I said, you know, we keep an eye out on the market to see what's happening. Obviously, when we started our supply chain financing journey, some of the tools that are available now weren't even around, right? That is, yeah. But yeah. And in terms of new technologies or specifically purchase order financing, you know, it is something new to us as well. I mean, TIN hasn't been around for that long, Trade Information Network. But what we find, or what I find very appealing, is that idea of a marketplace, right? A marketplace where not only do you share trade information data, but you basically bring together the banks, the buyers, and the suppliers. Right? You exchange information, and basically you can now pick the funding partner that serves you best, right? So and what our hope is that TIN grows further with even more participants participating, so that we really create that marketplace look and feel where the supplier can present a purchase order and, you know, ultimately maybe have 4 or 5 offers to choose from.
Yeah, and you have a network effect. More participants you have, more benefit you get for everybody.
Yep.
And let's go a little bit to the technology, because obviously a lot of people will talk about distributed ledger, about, you know, using blockchain, about permission versus open and things like it. Do you care? Like, is it anything that is important to you, or generally speaking, you are saying we are indifferent to technology, we are interested in functionality and cost. So if somebody delivered on centralized system, decentralized, you know, open, permitted, whatever it is, we don't really see much of a difference. The real question is what it's delivering.
Yeah. I mean, doesn't it feel like everything and anything is called blockchain these days, right? It's one of those buzzwords. Look, you got me. I'm not the blockchain expert here. I know at Roche there is a team of people looking into this. You know, what are the application areas? What I've been told is it's very early stages. Personally, I couldn't care less, right? If it's called blockchain or not, it is about functionality, right? And whether you call it something fancy or not. Look, I'm not saying blockchain doesn't have its purpose and its application areas, but I personally haven't seen anything in the space of trade financing solutions that has blown me away just because it was blockchain. Maybe it's there, but if it is, I don't know about it.
And let's talk a little bit about the future. Let's talk a little bit about the things that you do not see, but you want to see. So what will be the issues and the solutions that have a potential to be there, but are not there yet? What as a company, you are not seeing on the market, you like to see going forward?
Yeah. To be honest with you, it's probably more an internal need that I see. We need to, what's the word? We need to jazz up our internal processes, right? Especially when you think of invoice financing or reverse factoring or supply chain financing, it really, or it works best. It works best when you have a very efficient I2P process, right? Mm-hmm. The question of how and when do you receive those invoices? How do you route them through the business to the right business person, to the approver, or to the person in the warehouse who actually needs to push a button? Or maybe you can even automate the approval workflow. Maybe you don't need somebody to push the button, right? Two-way match, three-way match, maybe even a four-way match. So technology. And to be honest, this is something where we still have a few miles to walk. We are currently in the process of implementing a completely new company-wide procurement system. And as part of that, we will have new e-solutions to exchange trade flow information, both invoices and purchase orders with our suppliers. So that's something that obviously will give us a lot of benefits on a day-to-day basis, but also in light of supply chain financing or even PO financing, right? Having the information quicker, being able to sort out any discrepancy with the supplier more easily rather than emails or phone calls, right? So technology and a very good I2P process is really an enabler for these programs to really flourish. Right? And if it takes 4 weeks to get an invoice, you know, you don't really need to talk about early payment anymore.
And that's a very, very interesting point. And is going to who is going effectively to lead the process, because you're drawing a picture when companies need to improve a lot of process in supply chain finance, in supply chain management, and the finance is just one component. So you really need to have a lot of integration with your suppliers, and you can build this element. And there is a different view of the world that it's something that needs to be driven by banks and financial institutions, and that need to capture information needed for financing. So you imply in effect with the two worlds emerging, so that we will need to have something when people improve efficiency in their supply chain management, and financing is an integral part of it. I think is a great view.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, right? And the financing piece, right, is yeah, there are certain key milestones throughout the supply chain financing process. If they haven't been met, you can't even start the financing process, right? Like I said, invoice receipt, invoice recording, invoice approval, and probably the same applies to purchase orders, right? So the quicker this process is, the more integrated it is, the better the financial benefit that we can offer, essentially, right? Because the whole process can kick in earlier.
Okay, thank you, Jens. Very interesting, and we are all looking forward to hearing you on a panel on Consortia 21.